Hello there! My name is Jonas from Essen. I'm a 2-time world memory champion, and in this video I will teach you how to remember all 50 US states in the easiest way possible with memory techniques. If you look through it once and then repeat a bit, you will know them all forever. So let's start on the West Coast with California. California is known for its beaches and sun, so we can imagine California as a big beach along the Pacific Ocean. Next to California, we have Nevada, which sounds a bit like New Veda. So imagine a new Darth Vader mask staring toward the beach next to California. Moving on to the northwestern states, first we have something that looks like a whale jumping up on the shore. This is Oregon. To remember the name, picture the whale craving oregano so much that it jumps onto land to get some in a kitchen. Oregano, Oregon. In the kitchen, an old lady named Ida is cleaning the dishes. Ida is always home, Ida home, which helps us remember Idaho. But of course, she gets help from her husband, who also has a lot to do. He has to wash a ton of clothes. This is Washington State, up in the corner. Ida has a friend who is a face carved out of a mountain. Her friend's name is Anna, and since she's a mountain, she's called Mount Anna. This helps us remember Montana. Then we have these square-shaped states in the middle that could be difficult to remember, but we can imagine them as vases in a vase store. The first one here has been broken a bit at the corner. Imagine that you work in the store and were told that if you touch the vase, it will break easily. But you did it anyway. You touch the vase, you touch Utah is the name of this state. Then we have this colorful vase here. It's not so expensive, so we put it at the bottom, but it's very colorful, and color should make you think of Colorado. On top, we put the most expensive vase, which is a Chinese Ming vase. When someone enters the store, they might ask, why look at vases? But then they see this amazing Ming vase and exclaim, oh, Ming! So why, oh, Ming? Is the name of this state. Great, let's move on to the 3 states underneath these. Texas looks like someone going around collecting taxes from the American people. So taxes should make us think of Texas. The Texas guy is holding a Mexican flag, but in a bit of a different shape, because he's going to use some of the taxes to create a new version of Mexico, which is the country just below the US. So New Mexico is represented here. And finally, we have a rhino who is walking away from this New Mexico. He wants to reach his favorite zone, which is California, so that's Zone A for him. When he gets there, you could say to him, oh, congratulations, you are in Zone A, and that is Arizona. To make it easier to remember all of these states on top of Texas, we can view them as one single image. In this case, a duck who is holding a canvas in his hands and wearing a coat on his head. You might wonder, why is he wearing a coat on his head? It's because the northern part of the coat and the southern part of the coat represent North Dakota and South Dakota. And if you ask the duck himself why he's wearing a coat instead of a hat, he gets really tense, because you should never ask a duck such a question. Nebraska, Nebraska is the name of the state. Then he's holding a canvas, that's simply Kansas. At the bottom, you see his legs and feet, and he's wearing some kind of sandals made of oak and llama skin. The brand for these sandals is called Oklahoma, which is quite similar to Oklahoma, the name of that state. Cool, right? And we've already covered almost half of the map, so let's continue. If you tried to learn the states before, you probably recognize this shape, which is an old mnemonic where you imagine these states representing a chef cooking some chicken. First, the chef's hat is Minnesota, which sounds a bit like Minnesota. So you can imagine that underneath his hat he's keeping a mini soda for later. There's a lot of noise in this kitchen, so to stop it, he has taken Jupiter's moon Io and put it inside his ear as an earplug. So when you try to talk to him, he only says, "What?" So Io what? Iowa, the name of that state. As you can see from his shirt, he has been through a lot, and he doesn't earn much money in this cooking business, so he has to live with this old shirt. You could say that he's living in misery, and misery and Missouri are quite similar. Then in his pocket, he's carrying an arcing saw. This arcing saw helps us remember that the pants represent Arkansas. And finally, he's not wearing any shoes, as you can see. He's quite loose in that sense. He likes keeping his toes loose, and Louisiana is the name of that bottom state. Of course, he's also cooking some chicken. The fryer basket he's using looks a bit like a tennis net, the same pattern, which is fitting because the name of this state is Tennessee. And the chicken itself is, of course, from Kentucky Fried Chicken, because the chicken state here is Kentucky. So far, so good. Let's add some of the ones on top here. Maybe you're not finding the chicken spicy enough and want to make it a bit more Indian. So you take a bag of curry and pour some curry on top to make it taste more Indian. And to also help you remember that the curry bag represents Indiana. Between the curry bag and the chef, we have this guy, Illinois, who is getting ill from all the noise in the kitchen. Unlike the chef, he doesn't have an earplug, and that's why he gets ill. So ill plus noise, Illinois. To make it even worse, there's a toaster on top of him where we are trying to put in 2 scones. So we want scones in the toaster, and Wisconsin is this state. Then, close to the lakes, we have these 2 mittens that represent Michigan. Michigan sounds a bit like fish again. So you can imagine that you couldn't fish before because the water was so cold, but now with these mittens you can fish again in the Great Lakes. And then we have this other hand that doesn't wear a mitten, but who just wants to say hi to you. So he sees you, waves and says, "Oh, hiya!" which sounds like Ohio. We're getting close to the end now. Let's take the ones toward the south here, which looks a bit like characters from The Simpsons. First we have Mississippi, which makes me think of
Marge Simpson, also known as Mrs. Simpson. And Mrs. Simpson sounds a lot like
Mississippi. Next to her, we have something that looks like a Simpsons version of former Vice President Al Gore. You can imagine Al calling Obama to remember that this is Alabama. Next to him, we have Georgia, which looks like an old English king sitting on a throne. Maybe it's King George, so that's Georgia over there. Underneath them, you see Florida, which looks a bit like a crocodile, and that's fitting since there are lots of crocodiles in Florida. If you didn't know this, you can imagine that there's a crocodile on the floor, and you will know that Florida is down here. Adventurously enough, there's a girl here going paragliding, and her name is Carolina. The southern part of her is South Carolina, that's the girl herself going south, and the paraglider is North Carolina. Then we have a bit of a biblical theme here. You know, of course, about Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus. The woman is Virginia, and her veil is Maryland. So that's Virgin Mary, Virginia, and Maryland. Virginia is also holding a state that looks a lot like Pikachu, and that's West Virginia. To help you remember, you can imagine Pikachu wearing a vest, so West Virginia. Next to the veil, we have something that looks like a vacuum cleaner that is starting to become aware. Maybe it's connected to a Dell computer, and because of artificial intelligence, it becomes aware. It's Delaware. Delaware. On top of those, we have something that looks like a pencil box. We can imagine a pencil sticking out from that protruding upper part. That's Pennsylvania. Next to it we have New Jersey, which looks a bit like Jerry from Tom and Jerry, wearing a new jersey. New Jersey over there. And now we've reached New York State, in which the city of New York is located, but there's also a lot more. You can imagine someone looking at a model of New York with all the skyscrapers. That's the state of New York. Finally, we only have 6 left, the ones up in the corner that constitute New England. First, imagine a road going here. It gets cut off by a cutter, turning the road into only a road island. The name of this little state is Rhode Island. The cutter is cutting off the connection to the road, making a connection cut, and that's Connecticut. The thing that it hits when it cuts is some dentures, false teeth. With these you can perform massive chew sets. You're chewing things repeatedly in a massive way, so massive chew sets becomes the state Massachusetts. The last 3 are Vermont, which looks like a V, making it easy to remember. You can imagine that it's made from a mountain, V mountain, Vermont. Next to it is a pig who is shining because he's all freshly washed. From a pig you make ham, so this pig is called Ham, and since he has his new shine, we get New Hampshire, New Hampshire. And at the end we have a person greeting us as we reach the US and all these interesting states. He's like the main guy, the main gatekeeper, and that's why his name is also Maine. Now, of course, we can't forget the 2 states that are not connected to the rest. First, we have Hawaii, which looks a bit like a shark out in the Pacific Ocean. You can imagine that the shark is saying, "Howdy," when you see him, and you know that this is Hawaii. And finally, we have Alaska, which looks a little bit like the mafia boss Al Capone. Maybe he wants to ask a question about an offer that you can't refuse. So, Al ask a question, Alaska. Well done! Now you can probably immediately look at the map and remember many of these states. And if you watch the video once more and repeat a little bit, for example with the Seterra link in the description, you will soon know them all very well. It is also very easy, once you have these images, to remember other things about the states. For example, you can remember that Las Vegas is in Nevada by imagining that the Vader mask has a roulette wheel behind the mouth bars. If you want to remember that Kansas is called the Sunflower State, imagine that the canvas has sunflowers on it instead of abstract art. And if you want to recall that the Niagara Falls are located in the state of New York, imagine great waterfalls falling from the sky onto the model of New York in the New York State image. Comment below if you like this or if you have another idea of what some of the states could look like. If you have a suggestion of something else that you would like me to create a video about, how to remember using these amazing memory techniques, please feel free to share that as well below. I wish you a great day, whether you're in one of these states or in some other country with an interesting shape. Thank you for watching.